Let's move to the structure of American law enforcement, the structure of American law enforcement. I'm going to have this discussion because so many people really don't understand the structure of American law enforcement. So we'll begin with some police statistics. About 73% of U.S. police agencies are local and county. About 73%, so it's like 3/4 as opposed to state and federal. Most departments have less than 25 officers. So most police agencies in the U.S. are actually smaller. So we have all these little rinky-dink, we talked about that last week, how many different agencies we have in the United States and how that's kind of an American thing. So Chesaning, Frankenmuth, Tittabawassee Township, I mean all of these. You know, you get everything from your 2- or 3-man departments with the chief and a lieutenant and an officer to, you know, your 25-man agencies and on down. Only about 14% of local and county officers are female, even now in 2019. And this statistic has been kind of level for a while. And every once in a while you'll hear people say, oh, we need to get more women into law enforcement. But the bottom line is, folks, that it's a very specific field. It's very physically demanding. And there are a lot of women that just don't want to do that kind of work. You know, there are. It's a very special woman that wants to be a police officer. And it's not the norm. It's not the average. Even in corrections, about 1/3 of corrections officers now are female. And I remember talking to a female warden one time, and she says, well, I won't be happy until it hits 50%. I'm like, I'm sorry, lady, but that isn't going to happen. Because it's the same thing. It's the same beast. Not everybody wants to be a corrections officer first. And even fewer females want to be corrections officers than males, right? Because it's the nature of the work. And I think that's what we've got going on here. So if someday we maybe make 20%, I think we'd be doing good. But I think that's probably as good as it's going to get, at least the local and county level. Now, you do see a lot more females at the state and federal level. 75 to 80% of local and county officers are white. So this means that the average police officer in the United States is white, male, and works for a police agency of 25 or less. And again, we see a lot more diversity at the state and federal levels. All right, our little diagram here says city police, state police, county police, and federal. And I want to talk about this. I want to make some distinctions, which is which and what's what, because so many people don't really know that there's a difference. In fact, if you remember from the movie 10 Rules for Dealing with Police, the young man in the first scene says, I was hassled by the highway patrol. And then they cut to the scene and it says county sheriff on the side. Apples and oranges, not the same thing at all. Most people don't know. So we've got our municipal or our city police. We've got our county sheriff's office. We've got our state police or highway patrol. And we've got our federal law enforcement. So I'm going to walk through those one at a time now. We'll begin with municipal police. Municipal police refers primarily to our cities and townships. In the picture you see the Saginaw Township Police Department. That would be an example of municipal police. Cities and townships, villages like that. Now, municipal police may not always be police departments. They may be public safety departments. So Bay City, for example, has a public safety department. Essexville here, you can see, has a public safety department. The difference between a police department and a public safety department is that public safety does a little bit more. They are certified as police and firefighters and medical first responders. So if you haven't been able to make up your mind between being a firefighter and a police officer, let me help. You can do both. You just have to work for the right agency. There aren't a lot of public safety departments out there yet. You know, and I think the idea behind the public safety departments is saving money. The idea that firefighters have a lot of downtime. So instead of just sitting around during the downtime playing checkers or whatever, they can be out on patrol. And then when they're needed for a fire, then we'll call them for the fire. That's the logic behind it, I think. whether it's sound or not, I can't say. Municipal police usually wear blue uniforms. So that's where you get the back the blue and the boys in blue and the thin blue line. That's where that all comes from. And there's Officer Vasquez. I think he's retired now from Saginaw PD. And Eddie Bromberg, who I believe is now a lieutenant with Bay City Public Safety. Then we have the county sheriff offices. They are under a sheriff. You remember where the sheriff comes from? The old tithing system, Shire Reeve? And it really hasn't changed that much. We elect one of our own, one of the people, to oversee the law enforcement and peacekeeping of a shire or county in our case. So we have our 3 sheriffs. We've got Sheriff Federspiel in Saginaw County. We've got Sheriff Cunningham in Bay County, and we've got Sheriff Stevenson in Midland County. There is just one sheriff. Just one sheriff. They're elected. So we, the people, choose our sheriff. Every 4 years we go to the polls and we vote and we say we would like you to stay as sheriff, or we don't like you anymore, we want a new sheriff. We vote somebody else in. The duties of the sheriff's office include peacekeeping and law enforcement. I know, right? That was a hard one. Just like the old tithing system. Courts. Right? They oversee the courts and the safety and security of the courts. They run the jail. And they hire sheriff's deputies. Sheriff's deputies. A sheriff's deputy works for the sheriff in either law enforcement, courts, or corrections. I say this because so many people go, well, I got pulled over by the sheriff last week. No, you didn't. No, trust me, the sheriff was in his office doing political paperwork stuff. He was not out on patrol pulling you over. The sheriff did not pull you over. A sheriff's deputy pulled you over. And that's who pulled you over. Or, I went through the metal detector and the sheriff told me to go back through. No, the sheriff didn't. The sheriff's in his office. A sheriff's deputy told you to go back through. Big distinction, right? Because if you're pulled over by the sheriff, it makes it sound like he's come out of his office and he's in a squad car and he's riding around, when he needs to be probably doing other stuff instead, because it's a very political position. The sheriff's deputies. The deputy wanted me. The deputy pulled me over, okay? And don't feel bad. I mean, most people do that because nobody told them. But now you know. You're an insider. Sheriff's deputies usually wear brown, black, tan, or green, depending on their region. Now in Michigan, until just recently, pretty much everybody was wearing the old county brown. But apparently, a bunch of different agencies have gotten a really great deal on the black BDUs because a lot of people are going over to the black now. So they're wearing black shirts and black trousers, BDU trousers. You know, the ones with the pockets in the sides. I still think these look nicer. And you'll still see some agencies, if you go north of here, most everybody's still in the county brown. But in our area, we're seeing most of them go over to the black now. In the south and out west, well, let me come back here. I thought I had some pictures, I guess I don't. In the south and out west, you'll usually see them in tan or green uniforms. Where they might have tan trousers and a green shirt.
Usually, down in Florida, we were down there for spring break, they use all green.
All?
Yeah, they're all green.
All green?
Yeah, the sheriff's deputies are, and their sergeants were like black.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then you go out west, like California, you know, their highway patrol wears tan. And state law enforcement. In the photo, you see it says 49 of the 50 U.S. states have a primary state law enforcement agency. The only state that doesn't is Hawaii, and they kind of do their own thing out there, I guess the 5-0 or whatever. Grass skirts, luau's, I don't know. I've never been to Hawaii. I don't know anything about Hawaiian police. It just sounds hot to me, you know, all that gear in tropical conditions. It just didn't sound fun. Now, in state law enforcement, there are two models. There is what we call the state police model, which we embrace here in Michigan, and there you see our Michigan State Police. And the Michigan State Police cars, which they affectionately call the Blue Goose. The state police model gives full law enforcement authority to its officers. So they can do anything any police officer can do, they can do it over the entire state. So you see this more in the north and on the eastern seaboard. You go south and you go west, you're more likely to see the flip side of that coin. And that's going to be the highway patrol model. So Florida has a highway patrol, for example, if you were down there on spring break. Most of your western states, if you've ever watched the old Chips reruns, right? California Highway Patrol. What's that?
Ohio does too.
Yeah, Ohio does. Ohio's weird.
Are they actually people there?
The highway patrol model limits jurisdiction. It says you can do traffic safety on state roads and highways, but that's it. You can't do all that other policey stuff. Just traffic safety. So it's back to the idea we talked about, having too much power in one place and how it scares us. So a lot of these states said, oh, okay, yeah, we'll go with the state police, but we don't want too much power in one place, so they chop it up. For example, Florida has a highway patrol, but who's going to do the policing stuff? Well, they have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to do that. California has CHIPS, California Highway Patrol, and then they have the CBI, California Bureau of Investigation. And so we've divvied up the power. We've split that power up because we don't want too much power in any one place. It scares us. Does that make sense? So depending on the state. Finally, we have federal law enforcement. Federal law enforcement has subject matter jurisdiction only. So that means that they can act anywhere in the U.S. and its territories, but remember, only in one narrow band of law. That's it, just this right here. So pick your alphabet soup group. FBI, DEA, ATF, DHS, USMS, ICE, IRS. Now here's a little known secret. There are a lot of federal policing opportunities that you never hear about because every single federal agency has its own law enforcement. Yep, they've got their own. We went to the United States Supreme Court when we went to Washington, D.C. a few years ago, and they have their own little police force whose jurisdiction is just the Supreme Court building and the area around it. We went to the National Archives, which is where all the really cool old documents are. And while we're waiting in line to see these really cool old documents, I look at the officer who's standing guard, and he's got, this is no joke, this is just a few years ago, he's got a 6-shooter on his hip. And I looked at him and I kind of laughed. I said, gosh, I haven't seen one of those since like the 80s. And he laughs and he kind of shrugs. He says, well, and he waves his arms around all these old documents. He says, there's not really much call for any more than that here. I'm like, yeah, I could see that. So every federal agency has its own police agency. So there's a lot of hidden opportunities that you wouldn't even know about unless you did a little digging.